Mark Carney called an election for April 28th.
There is so much more to do to secure Canada, to invest in Canada, to build Canada, to unite Canada. That's why I'm asking for a strong, positive mandate from my fellow Canadians. I've just requested that the Governor-General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28th.
Well, Sheila, I think we have an answer to the query, who has more charisma, Mark Carney or Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter? It's Hannibal Lecter in a landslide. Boy, do you feel the energy just draining out of the room?
Yes.
That's why I facetiously call him Mr. Charisma. This is the shortest election you're allowed to have, 36 days. So April 28 is the day we've got a circle in our calendars. Obviously, I think, Sheila, the strategy by the Liberal Party of Canada, and I don't think it's going to work, is let's have the shortest election possible so that the media, well, those who care in the media, can't dredge up any kind of, uncomfortable information about Mr. Carney, like what really was his relationship with Miss Maxwell, the recruiter, if you will, for Epstein Island. And let's strike while the iron is hot versus big bad orange man to the south. I think that's going to peter out really in the days ahead. And I really, really think, Sheila, even though the polls went from conservative landslide just a few months ago to a horse race and a photo finish at that, I don't believe the polls. I do not. Because the question in any election is simply this: are you better off now than you were, in this case, 10 years ago under blackface? And part B is, let us never forget that Mr. Carney was an advisor to Justin Trudeau for the last 5 years. He's campaigning against policies that he advocated. And these policies are political plagiarism. Everything he's running on has been stolen from Pierre Poilievre's platform. What are your thoughts, Khaleesi?
Yeah, Mark Carney has the flat affect of an overly medicated, slightly alcoholic Beverly Hills housewife. Like I feel like he's in a trance all the time, attempting to put me into a trance. There are a lot of exciting things happening in the Canadian political landscape, a lot of outrageous things that drive public outrage. And you would get none of that from him. Like he's so unexcitable, and he should be. Yeah. You're running to lead people. You want to run on fresh ideas. I guess the problem is all the ideas he's running against are his own. so it sort of leaves you with nothing. Except I guess campaigning against Trump. And as you know, Carney was endorsed by Trump because Prime Minister Carney makes Canada weak. So anyways, let's watch this. He says Trump wants to break us. Efron or Olivia, if you want to cut me off the screen, I've got to go take some bread out of the oven. I'll be right back.
President Trump wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We are over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves, and we have to look out for each other, just like you did in Gander all those years ago. And that's what my government is doing during this crisis. We're acting to protect workers by using every dollar that we collect from retaliatory tariffs to go to workers. I announced that earlier this week. Because we're stronger when we're together. Because we're all in this together, healthcare in Canada is a right, not a big business. Because we're all in this together, our government created $10 a day childcare for hardworking families. Because we're all in this together, we created the Canadian Dental Care Plan. We can't afford to let anyone, not American politicians or Canadian politicians, make us angry or divided. As Diane said to me earlier, we can't let them change us. They need to be more like us. President Trump's plan is to divide and conquer. Pierre Poilievre's plan is to divide and be conquered. Yet, my opponent, Pierre Poilievre, doesn't get this. He doesn't understand what's needed in a crisis. He doesn't understand that leaderships Canadians want in their time of need. In fact, his language sounds a bit familiar. As Daniel Smith has said, Pierre Poilievre is in sync with Donald Trump.
Well, folks, that is absolutely remarkable. You have Mr. Carney saying that both President Trump and Pierre Poilievre want to divide us. To use a Lecter line, Mr. Carney, look within yourself. Your government, and you've been an advisor for 5 years, you have done everything to divide Canadians, be it the trucker convoy, be it the mandatory vaccinations under economic penalization, be it the biggest attempted gun grab in our Dominion's history. Blackface has set Canadians against one another. He has caused so much division. I don't even recognize our once great Dominion anymore, Sheila. So I find it a little rich when Carney is going on about the threat of division. I have never in all my adult life seen this country so divided thanks to the last decade of liberal mismanagement.
You know, Mark Carney is the guy who wrote the op-ed, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, maybe it was in the Ottawa Citizen, doesn't matter, calling convoy protesters, peaceful convoy protesters, people who didn't want to take an inoculation against unemployment against their will. He called them seditionists. Yeah. Seditionists, enemies of the state. And he advised treating them as though they are like supporters of the Freedom Convoy. It was the Globe and Mail. How dare they, actually? This is kind of gross. Time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. Well, as it would turn out, the law they wanted to enforce and that they did enforce, the Emergencies Act, was illegally invoked. And he wanted these people and advised the government to treat these people like financiers of terrorism if you donated to the Freedom Convoy. So how dare Mark Carney say that Pierre Poilievre is dividing people for at least the last 5 years? Anybody who disagreed with the Liberal policy was either fringe radical extremist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi adjacent, some sort of crypto-fascist, or some Christian white nationalist. I've just absolutely had it with these people calling other people things that they are. Mark Carney, the phone call is coming from inside the House. It's your own party, and how dare you take the high road on this, or at least claim to take the high road, because he's not on it.
You know, Sheila, you raised some excellent points there, and I want to further add my 2 cents worth. First of all, this whole business of branding those who are right of center as seditionists, as supporting terrorist causes, as being so many white supremacists. You know, Sheila, it's amazing. The Liberal campaign slogan in this campaign is Canada Strong. For the Conservatives, it's Canada First. They're very similar sounding. They're both good, I think. But it is the left-wing media that is vilifying Pierre Poilievre's Canada First slogan. They are saying, and I'm not making this up, folks, this is racist and it's code speak for white supremacy. I kid you not. Secondly, I really hope, if I had one wish on this election campaign, it would be one of the trained SEALs on the Mark Carney bus, the mainstream media Carney-funded journalist, to ask Mr. Carney this when it comes to being a seditionist. What do you think, Mr. Carney, of what we saw in cities yesterday in Canada, the vile and violent Al-Quds rally, where you had people displaying swastikas, where you had people dressing up as Sinwar in cosplay, where you had people chanting genocide to the Jewish people. Law enforcement did nothing. Actually, I take that back, Sheila. Law enforcement gave the Islamists an escort as they marched up University Avenue, blocking that avenue to 5 major hospitals, including sick kids. So, Mr. Carney, what do you have to say about those people? What do you have to say about those people who clearly hate Canadian values, clearly hate Western values? They're waving all kinds of flags. You won't see a Canadian flag. I thought that was fashionable to wrap oneself in the Canadian flag these days. Not with this crew. So, Mr. Carney, will you denounce that? I would love to hear that question asked, Sheila, and I would love to hear the answer.
You mean you want Mr. We agree with Hamas to denounce the Hamas radicals on the street? Is that what you're asking?
That was lost in translation, according to Fraulein Freeland.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the party of medical segregation, right? Yep. This is the party that created biomedical elites and a biomedical underclass in this country, accusing other people of fostering division. They've done nothing but call names for Canadians, against Canadians, for at least the last 5 years. And if you were Christian, going back further than that. It's just that they got around to calling everybody else names towards the end of their Trudeau's era. Let's move ahead, though, because if you go to a Mark Carney event, which we are not allowed to do, but I look at the footage of a Mark Carney event, and it looks like the Lord's waiting room. There's a lot of aging white boomers there. The problem is aging white boomers get out and vote. And that should be a lesson to everybody else that they need to get out and vote. Just do not count on the momentum of the Conservatives. If you are voting for your issues and your issues are conservative, you got to show up at the ballot box.
Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money. And we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.